Hello everyone and welcome to a new series, Minecraft, but the edition changes every episode. The premise of this series is to somewhat document the different versions of Minecraft, including snapshots, the April Fool's updates, and historical events from outside of the game. Primarily is going to be a survival let's play through all the different versions. But in some cases, such as the April Fool's updates or major updates that add a lot of new stuff, we may create some new creative mode worlds purely for demonstration documentation. There may also be, well, there will definitely be half episodes between the main episodes for things such as mining, building, or other non-version specific activities. Now, for the first few episodes, it's going to be about the pre-releases and pre-history. These worlds cannot be brought into future versions and require a bit more effort to get right. Specifically, we're starting with the pre-classic versions, which were originally referred to as the Cave Game demo tests, in which case, to delete and create a new world, you have to go into the %appdata% folder .minecraft, or roaming.minecraft, and then there will be a file called level.dat, which you have to delete, and this folder is normally hidden. The pre-playable versions, pre-classic, they're referred to as Cave Game Test Demo in real time. And then file names, they're referred to as Ruby Dungeon, shortened to either Ruby Dung or RD for the file names. They also have a number here, which the first one, 13/22/11, refers to the day of the month and the time. So it would have been the 13th of the month at 22:11 o'clock, which would be 10:11 p.m. So RD-13/22/11, the first playable version through the Minecraft Java launcher, was made on May 13th, 2009 at 10:11 p.m. CEST. CEST, of course, refers to Central European Summertime. Of course, before the RD-13/22/11, there was a previous version called Cave Game Tech Test, or Cave Game Tech Demo. It had caves generated with cobblestone, well, stone, which looked like cobblestone, and grass blocks. Now, most of you will have heard of chunks, which is a Minecraft term for a 16x16 section of the world. Chunks have been in the game since the very beginning. It is the original method for world generation. There was also a lighting engine placed in the Cave Game Tech Test. Now, the controls added were that you could press R to respawn, which would teleport you to a random place in the 256 by 256 and 64 tall map. There was also, of course, WASD to move around, the space key for jumping, and you could use the mouse to look around. Now, all you could do is look and move around. There was no way to place or move blocks. You could only explore. Which is why, likely, it was never released as playable. But there was a video released on Notch's YouTube channel at the time. Now into a version we can actually play. Added in this version, there was placing and destroying blocks, which was backwards. It would be left click to place a block, which nowadays would be destroying it, or right clicking to destroy, which nowadays would be placing it. In this early version, you could place blocks on a space you were occupying, trapping yourself inside the block until you broke it. It also added a new button to the controls where you could save the level by pressing enter. Of course, the level also saves automatically when you close the game. Now, the world generation was turned to super flat and was 42 blocks thick. The only blocks in the game at this time were air, which was at the time not listed as a block, the grass block, which was solid grass and did not have any display of dirt on it, and the stone block, which uses a texture that would later be used for the cobblestone texture. The grass block and stone block were graphics reused from a unfinished game that Notch was working on, Ruby Dungeon. The player did not have a model at this time. There were no other mobs, and the player had a height of 1.7 blocks. So let's go ahead and launch up the first playable version. There is no way to go full screen or make it bigger. As you can see, it is a flat world. I can place blocks by left clicking, destroy blocks by right clicking. And if you'll notice, any block that is on the same height level as grass is placed as grass, and any other height level is placed as stone. Now, I would make a small building to demonstrate, but due to the limitations of the coding at the time and it being so early in development, we will have to manually delete the level.dat folder to view later versions of world generation. But I will also demonstrate that you can place the blocks inside yourself, and if there's a block on either side of you, you cannot get out, but you can jump out, or you can just break the block next to you as well. So I'll go ahead and exit that version, go into the %appdata% folder, delete the level.dat file, and we can move on to the next version. 13/23/28. So May 13th, 2009 at 11:28 CEST PM. This version added mobs, which in the file name was referred to as Zombie, which was reused from Zombie Town, an abandoned project made by Notch before Minecraft. Now, as you'll notice, despite being called zombies, they look like Steve, which is why zombies in modern day Minecraft have the same clothes as Steve, because Steve is a reused model of a zombie from a different game that Notch was working on. Now, these mobs do not save to the level.dat file, and 100 of them spawn in random positions upon the world generating. So I can now demonstrate that when you press R, you respawn to a new location, and if you hold it, you rapidly change locations at random. Which way to the closest edge of the world? I'm gonna just go ahead and respawn, so that way we're closer, because we were pretty close to the center. And if you jump off the edge, you can. There's nothing stopping you. You can also dig through the bottom of the world, but you won't die. You will just fall below level 0 forever until you press R to respawn, of course. So yeah, in just over an hour, zombies were added to the game in a very demonstrative way of other entities existing. Now, moving on to the third version that we have available. Now, you'll notice the file name on this one is quite a bit longer. That's because it lists 2009 May 15th rather than the normal file name format. This one is estimated to be around 12:25 a.m. CEST, so just after midnight. And it was 2 days later, but it added new blocks. It adds cobblestone, which recycles the previous texture for stone, albeit slightly modified, and stone gets its own texture that we would recognize today. Dirt is added, which generates undergrass blocks. and it transforms to grass when it's next to a grass block. It also adds planks, not wood planks, just planks. Although it is implied to be made out of wood. It adds the crosshair in the middle of the screen for aiming. And in this version, it is apparently very thin. You pick which block you're placing by using the number keys 1 through 4. The currently selected building block is displayed in the top right corner of the screen. There is apparently a full screen mode, although I have been unable to find it. And you can press G to spawn zombies. This is also the first time we'll see the modern-ish versions of grass and stone block textures. This version also reduced the number of naturally spawned zombies from 100 to 10. And if they fall below y equals -100, they are now removed from the world. And they now appear darker when in shade, which is when there is no light. Now, in these early versions, light is just a big square at the top of the world, and if they can see the block, there's light. In modern day, this would mean it can see the sky, which is used for some terrain generation and mechanics in the game. The player can now jump further and walk and fall faster. And moving in midair is much slower than moving on the ground. Additionally, the world generation has changed, so hills and sometimes cliffs can appear. The game at this time is also renamed from Cave Game to Minecraft Order of the Stone, which was a suggestion in an online forum in reference to a webcomic called The Order of the Stick. The game was later shortened to just Minecraft, and Order of the Stone was reused in Minecraft story mode. So let's boot it up and check it out. Here we see there are very few zombies. The world has generated not super flat. And we have the new grass block texture, along with new blocks of dirt, stone, having a new texture. As you can see in the top right, there is a change in what block I can select and place based off what number I'm pressing. Here we have cobblestone using a slightly changed texture of the old stone. As you can see, there is a flashing white side of the block depending on which one I'm looking at. We have planks, which are somewhat dull compared to later textures. But if I press 6, there are also saplings, which are not listed to be in this version, which means that either the wiki that I'm drawing information from is wrong, even though it's the official wiki, or the early versions of the games have been mixed up a little, which is completely possible because all of the versions labeled RD are modified versions from 2013. Meaning there could have been some mistakes or later modifications compared to the originals. Additionally, you can also just place saplings like any other block, and they do not grow into trees. And once again, I will delete the level.dat folder as we move into our next version. 16.0052. So about 1 day later, May 16th, 2009 at 12:42 a.m. CEST. Back to the previous naming format for files. In this version, particles have been added to blocks when they break. The game can also now run in full screen mode, and this is when the name of the game is changed from Minecraft Order of the Stone to just Minecraft. So let's boot this version up. Completely full screen. The crosshair is much smaller, although that might be a side effect of playing on a 4K screen. And this world that is generated is much more divot shaped. It's high around the outside and has a depression in the center. Not bad though. And when I press 6, there is no sapling, which means it is likely a mistake from 2013 where they mistakenly added it to the previous version, but it was not originally there. Moving on to our last version of pre-classic, we have 16.13.48, which would have been May 16th at 11:48 a.m. UTC, so just before noon. Now this is when saplings were officially added to the game, which is by pressing 6. There is a reason there is no block on 5, which is apparently because Notch disliked the texture of the sapling and tried to hide it over on 6. They, of course, did not still grow into trees, and planks had a new texture that look much closer to today's oak planks. With world generation, cliffs became much more common, and objects in the distance appear a tiny bit darker. The game runs in windowed mode again rather than full screen, and the particles now follow the player's location. The player facing up sees the full particle rather than a sliver of the side. The crosshair is made thicker, and the block preview in the top right corner of the screen has been flipped. As you can see, cliffs are much more common and much taller. And if we place some saplings, this is not actually the sapling version. This is not actually the sapling texture from the original version of this version. This is a modified version. I can go over here and pull the wiki page, zoom in a bit, and you should be able to see what saplings looked like at the time. And you can see why Notch disliked it. It's not great. But I will have to boot this back up because I forgot to demonstrate the new texture for planks, which is not appearing. This is the old texture. I might be able to get it to display the new textures with an older version. And I forgot that 16.0052 crashes if it does not have a fresh level.dat folder. Let's open this one up and add some planks. Close out and head to the last version with the same level.dat folder. And now I just have to find where those were placed. There they are. So the saplings I placed have just, or no, there weren't any saplings that I placed because they weren't available. And the planks still have the same texture. So sadly, we were not able to see the proper textures for this version. Well, that concludes it for this episode covering pre-classic edition. Next episode, we'll be covering classic edition, which adds much more to the game, as it is somewhat finalized into something recognizable today.